Sometimes we would go and before an exam the night before, we would is time management and hustling and because I think sometimes when you come straight out of undergrad right into PA school, there is that disconnect with I'm gonna be honest. I didn't.
You didn't study. Savannah is a great place, I feel like, for PA school.
Yeah.
So what made you choose Savannah?
Ask each other high yield questions.
Welcome to the first episode of the STAT podcast. I'm your host, Harsh Patel. I'm a clinical year PA student currently in my rotation 2. Today we have my classmate Payton Davison, who is also a clinical year student, rotating in her emergency medicine rotation. She is also from Pennsylvania, just like myself, and her patient care experience consists of dialysis, patient care tech, virtual medical scribe for a family medicine clinic, and working as a medical assistant in a dermatology clinic. The best thing about Payton is that she knows the best places in Savannah, Georgia, and you will see at the end of the episode when I ask her some rapid fire questions. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Expect to learn pre-PA skills that got her into PA school, some study habits, and just generally a chill conversation about her experience. And lastly, the rapid fire questions at the end. Being your classmate, one of the things I've noticed that you are really quick at finishing exams. Like she finishes exams like mostly in 30 minutes or 40 minutes. How do you do it? And what are your tips about reading skills?
So when I was younger, I was in speed reading. So I was taught to read a book from the middle sentence down. And then those are the most important parts, and all the other parts you can kind of just like see in your peripheral, and you kind of are able to understand the full picture without reading from left to right. So when I'm reading an exam, I kind of just read from the middle down. I'm able to pick up on the vital signs, and then usually you'll see some keywords that they're wanting and like locations, and then I just read the last line of what it's asking me. If it wants the diagnosis, the treatment, if they're asking for pathophys, and usually I just do it like that. And then if I get stumped from just doing that, then I'll go back and read the full thing. But usually I can just pick up, or if there's pictures are super helpful too, because if I see a picture of something, I'm like, I don't need to read the vignette. I can see that that's a pneumothorax.
Yeah, but I feel like you have to like have started back in what?
This was second grade. They taught me to speed read, and then that's just how I've read ever since. And it's kind of
everything, like maybe nonfiction books to
every book I read like that. Yep.
Okay. How do you recommend for people like me? Like I cannot read. Like I don't read.
Yeah.
I just cannot read. Sit down and look at a page. I would rather draw stuff out or read like maybe a summary of it and then kind of understand my head. But what do you recommend for people they do if they really want to like increase their reading speed?
I don't know, because that's just how I learned reading. So it wasn't like I had a specific way of reading and then had to kind of change it to increase the speed or increase my knowledge of what I was reading. So I think it's just, you got to constantly be doing it. You got to constantly be very actively reading. You can't be thinking about other things while you're reading. If you're sitting there and not actively,
the dishes or like
you have to focus in. And I think that's so important, because if you're focusing in, you can spend half the amount of time doing something. Then when you're sitting there and then you're reading a sentence, but you're thinking like, oh, it could be all these things. Just hone in on what you're reading and try to actively engage in what you're reading. And I think it helps a lot more go faster. And then also, you don't need to read every single word, like all the thes, like you can kind of skip around and pick out the keywords. I think is super helpful.
I think that's a great advice. But I have a personal experience here. Ever since we started clinicals like 2 months ago or a month ago, I have been taking creatine monohydrate. Now, this might be pseudoscience or fake science, but I feel like I am reading a little bit faster.
Okay.
So this is just an idea I came up recently. Okay, so maybe creatine has to do something with it going into our brains and then affecting your ocular like muscles somehow. Because recently, like some studies have come out that like creatine is helping depression. I don't know if you have heard of it, but this is just my maybe speculation, or it's just pseudoscience. But it's something that I want to add. if you guys want to try that. But
Yeah.
something that I've
I
seen.
guess so, because I mean, creatine is used in the muscles to
Yeah.
help with making creatinine. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that maybe it can help increase the eye muscles, and you could move your eyes faster to read.
Yeah.
But I think it does come a little bit more just from conceptualizing what you're reading and taking that and kind of making it smaller than what it is. I think sometimes we read a lot, we get overwhelmed, and if you can just
Yeah.
read it and conceptualize it very quickly, then it's more working on the summarization of it than
Yeah.
how fast I'm reading it.
Okay, so what are some other skills that you have, maybe let's just start with maybe in undergrad, that you have used apart from fast reading skills that have helped you in your study habits? But like in PA school,
Yeah.
if you got into PA school, I'm assuming like you have to be really smart, intelligent. You have to have a lot of skills to perform in a lot of different science classes. What are some other skills?
I think a big skill is time management
Yeah.
and hustling. In undergrad, I was pre-med in undergrad, so and I finished all of my major within my 3 years of being there. So my last year of senior year was all electives and then like fun classes that I took.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I had to really time manage. I worked 3 jobs,
Okay.
basically all through college, and then I was also trying to get my hours for PA school. So I think that I had such little time to study that when I was studying, I was such actively studying, and I would study so much further in advance for my exams because I had so much less time. And I think that really helped me transition into PA school, because PA school, yes, it's hard, it's a lot of material, but this was the only time in my life that when I was doing school, I wasn't doing 15 other things associated. I wasn't in a sorority, I wasn't working patient care hours, I wasn't working at the bakery down the road, I wasn't working on campus. Like, it was the only time that I was able to have an allotted time to study and to be focused. And I think having that background of hustling in undergrad and really honing in my time management skills, that when I can sit down, I don't have to sit there for 8 hours, 10 hours a day and study. I can sit there for 3 or 4 hours and get so much more active studying done than I think some people can. Because I think some people sit down, they'll sit there for 8 to 10 hours and they're not actively engaging what they're doing. They're thinking about other things, or you'll go on your phone, you'll do this, you'll do that. So it's, I think, getting that time management and learning how to be actively engaged for a short period of time is a lot more beneficial than sitting there for a while. And does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. One of the things I did is during undergrad, I just started making review questions in terms of notes in class. Like, instead of writing everything down or just looking at the slides in undergrad, I would just make questions, and then the answer would be answers would be in the PowerPoint. I would just look at the question and then find the answers in the PowerPoint. So when you talk about active recall or active strategies, what are you talking about?
When I read something, I'm very actively reading it, and then I'm explaining it to myself in my head. So I get done reading it, and then I'm like, okay, what did I just read? And can I say like what the pathophys is, what the diagnosis is, and what the treatment is? And I think those are the most important parts of what we're doing now, kind of, is for clinicals. It's not trying to memorize everything on a slide like it was for didactic. So I sit there, read about I'm reading about, give me an example of a disease.
Reading about gallbladder diseases.
Yeah, so say I'm reading about cholecystitis.
Yeah.
Okay, how I think about how a patient would present, and then I'm like, how would I diagnose that patient? And then what would the treatment be right there, right then? And so I'm like, okay, patient will present, 55-year-old woman, presents with right upper quadrant pain, positive Murphy sign, and then I'll be like, okay, diagnosis, we can do an ultrasound, you can do a CT without contrast, and then we're gonna, what's the treatment? We're gonna do a cholecystectomy. And that's how I'm actively engaging and knowing what I just read. And I think it helps me too for the exams, because that's how it's gonna present. And
it really helps you have fast reading skills, because you said you read and explain. It probably cuts down half the time compared to like a normal person, especially for me. But that's why I rely more on
the review questions.
Just review questions and like saying things out
loud.
I
think questions are definitely helpful too. Honestly, getting questions wrong is very helpful, because then you can understand why you missed it. And I think that helps a lot more, because you're like, oh, I thought I knew what that was, but now that I got it wrong, I reviewed it. And
But I know, remember, like in didactic, when we used to take walks around campus, like you guys were, one instance, you guys were like verbalize everything. So I was wondering how you guys study. So is that how you study too in didactic?
For didactic, we would definitely do that just if we wanted to hang out and talk. That was a way for us to talk and then also study. But that's kind of how I'm studying in my head, is that way that we're walking. We would be reading the PowerPoints and then going back and be like, what does this mean? And explaining what that meant and stuff like that. So sometimes if we do group study, that is how we'll study, or we'll study with like questions. And sometimes we would go and before an exam, the night before, we would text each other high yield questions, and then you would have to send the answer with invisible ink. And that was also super helpful, because if you some people can read things differently and understand things differently than you do, so it's nice for them to be like, I think this is going to be important because other people think something else might be important. And then a lot of those questions that someone else thought was going to be important, they asked in the text. I never would have thought that was going to be important. Then it would be a question on the test. So I think it's good to get other people's perspectives on.
So me and my friends during didactic, we used to make our exam questions. We should have definitely done that, like texting the high yield questions, because those took a lot of time. And then one of the things I have done like later in didactic was just asking ChatGPT to make some review questions.
I did that at the beginning a lot, and I like that. But I felt like us texting was honestly more beneficial, because I was able to do it quickly while I was reading the PowerPoints. And I'm like, this would actually be a good question. Let me ask them that, and then it could be on the exam.
Yeah, definitely. That group effort is sometimes really important. Like there's a lot of times when like my friends have saved me in terms of knowing something if they have asked me something before the exam. Like there's like countless times.
So get other people's perspectives when they're studying.
So how you guys study in a group? Like do you guys regular, like right now, do you guys study in a group, or
no, not recently. We haven't studied in a group just because a lot of us are all over the place. We have crazy hours right now, and we're not all taking the same exams. Last rotation though, me and Megan in our class, we both had internal medicine, so sometimes we would just randomly send each other pimp questions we got out of the blue, or questions while we were studying out of the blue, which I think was super helpful. But we haven't been group studying lately. But in didactic, when we did, it was kind of like you had to sit down, understand the material, and then go in together. And specifically for pharm, we would do that a lot. Review it ourselves, and then go and meet on the whiteboard, and then write out all the classes, write out the mechanism of action, and then like the high yields of the pharm. And I thought that was super helpful. Okay.
So how did you have to change your study habits from undergrad to PA school?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't.
You didn't study?
No, I didn't study.
You did study.
I didn't
you didn't
change how I studied. I always have just read. And tried to understand. It wasn't like I was in undergrad. I guess I never used Quizlet, and then in PA school I used Quizlet.
What's the deal with flashcards? Do you like flashcards, or?
I don't necessarily think I like flashcards because I don't like Anki, and Anki's like specifically flashcards. I like Quizlet because I like Quizlet Learn, and it's like multiple choice. But I think I don't actively engage when I'm reading flashcards, and I think that's why I don't like flashcards. I feel like I waste my time when I'm reading them. But I guess I use Quizlet now just because it's so much information that we have now compared to undergrad. That in undergrad I was able to get away with just reading the slides over a few times and comprehending everything, and then like I could use the textbook if I needed to further understand something. But I basically do the exact same thing I did in undergrad, which it worked for me, but sometimes that doesn't work for everyone else.
Because I know some people say that it's so different compared to undergrad, but then like if you're taking like 18, 19, or maybe 20 credits.
I was taking a lot of credits.
So it's like similar, right?
I think my first semester in college I was taking 20 credits.
Oh wow.
And it was all like chemistry, first bio, you had all of like I had calc, like all of those classes. So it was a lot of information, and I was basically having exams every 2-3 weeks. So
that's similar to what we had, honestly.
I think because I front loaded in college that I was kind of under that same pressure, and with like less time to do it, it was kind of felt the same. So kill yourselves in undergrad and it'll work out for me.
Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what I made a video the other day about how if I had to go back, how I would set up my college experience. I would have delayed my college and then I would have like maybe taken a lot of courses, finish in 3 years, but I would have done it after getting my clinical experience, like not the
You would have
other way
done
around.
college after the clinical.
Yeah. What do you have? And do you have any thoughts on that? Because how competitive it is to get into PA school?
I loved college, so
Yeah.
I don't think that I would have, because like yes, schooling was hard in college, but I also loved the experience of college.
Yeah.
Like everyone
Same.
was around my same age. I met so many friends. I had such great experiences. Like in a sorority, and I feel like if I would have delayed, then I would have been a little bit older, and maybe I wouldn't have like found my group as easily.
Yeah.
So I think that I think I would have started my, because I decided PA school super late. I was always medical school,
Okay.
medical school, medical school, and then I
Yeah.
had a breakdown in my advisor's office, and I was like, I don't want to go to school for this many more years. And she was like, okay, think about being a PA. I was like, cool. So I think I would have gotten I honestly think I would have not done any clinical experience in college and then maybe taken an extra gap year.
Okay.
Because I only took one gap year. And honestly, a gap year was I feel like I matured so much because I was completely on my own. We were living in Houston compared to Pennsylvania. So we were in a new city, meeting new people, had so many great experiences. I feel like I could have used an extra year to even network, meeting more people, meeting more physicians. That way, once I was in school, I would have this huge group of people I already knew to help me kind of get a job. I think with only a year, I did make great connections, but I think I could have further made connections and maybe set myself up better for once we get out of school.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when you come straight out of undergrad right into PA school, there is that disconnect with not maturity, but disconnect with like how you view the outside world and how you're.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Do you kind of agree? Like it's like.
I do. I have a similar experience, but not too similar. I didn't finish my undergrad in 3 years. I finished my undergrad in 4 years, but then I didn't get into PA school for like another 1.5. So I had like kind of a gap or two, not from like not voluntarily.
Yeah.
Like I was getting rejected, and that's why I had gap years. But honestly, it was the best like 1.5 years of my life because I learned so much about myself because I wasn't showing myself while I was like getting interviewed. Like I wasn't my true self all throughout the first cycle, and then I realized at the end that this is how you like present yourself to schools, and this is like how you show that you really want to be a PA.
Yeah, I think the more
it takes time, basically.
Yeah, the more experience you have and the more kind of like even in your gap year, you're going to be interviewing for jobs. You're going to be like doing that. So you're going to get this experience that other people don't have. And you're going to be able to go into interviews and be able to have better interview process, better way that you communicate with people, better experiences right on your personal essay. So I think that having a few years is definitely worth it. I can sometimes in my head, I'm like, maybe I should have taken some more gap years because I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm not immature, but I just feel like I could have more experience behind me and not feel like I'm freaking out during clinicals because I'm like, should I know like all of this? Like,
what was your patient care experience in?
Before school?
Yeah, like what was your clinical experience in before PA school?
So in college, I was a patient care technician for a dialysis clinic. So I would go in at 4 a.m. on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I would stay there from 4 to 10.
Okay.
And then I would drive to campus, go to school from like 11 till whenever my classes finished. So that was what I did in undergrad. And then when I graduated, I did virtual medical scribing for a family medicine clinic. Okay. So I was living in Houston. The clinic was in Ohio. Oh. I was on like a little speaker in the room, and everything the patient said, I scribed. So I was doing like full H&Ps, which was super helpful before school because I got very good with like doing HPIs, doing ROS, knowing the assessment and plans. I thought that was honestly great. It wasn't like direct patient care experience, but it was kind of the backside of things. And then I was a medical assistant in dermatology, which was also super helpful because lots of procedures, lots of diagnosis, I was also scribing as medical assistant, so lots of note taking. And I think that's one of the most hands-on assistant jobs that you can get other than being like CNA, stuff like that. Because I'd be with the Mohs surgeon, helping suture, pulling back flaps. Then I'd be with the derm, and I'd be helping with cyst INDs. I'd be helping with skin cancer excision, stuff like that. So I think it was super hands-on and also good on the medical side, outpatient side.
Yeah, that's actually an amazing like mix of experience.
Yeah.
Mine wasn't that interesting, but I would say that like you said, it's really important to have more experiences. So in what way are you talking about having more experience? Like more clinical experience or more in a particular field?
I think clinical experience, because I didn't have any inpatient experiences, and I wish I would have, because I think I have like a disconnect with some of the hospital things and just like kind of lost on. So I wish I would have had some sort of inpatient experience, because I did basically everything outpatient. So that was my one thing. I'm like, I wish I would have done something inpatient and then got to experience a little bit more of the hospital side, because the hospital is a whole beast in itself. Like,
it's a lot.
You have so many units. You have the consults. You have all of the stuff that goes on in the emergency room. Then they go to med surg, and you have the ICU, and then they go to internal med. So I'm just like, understanding that whole thing in itself is.
Yeah. I was glad that I was a patient transporter. It's not anywhere close to being a patient care experience, but I was able to see so many departments.
Yeah.
And I was just able to see a lot of stuff. But speaking of getting this pre-PA stuff and this clinical experience, what do you think people like? What are some mistakes pre-PAs make when applying to PA schools?
I think that you need to be super prepared before the CASPA even opens. You should be reaching out for letters of recommendation months beforehand. Just be like, hey, like, they're going to be sending you a link. I want a letter of recommendation. Have them start getting ideas, writing something beforehand. Start kind of writing your personal statement. Getting transcripts also was a huge thing for me, because I did college credits in high school, and I didn't realize that was its own separate transcript than my original college. So I was when I first put in my CASPA cycle, they were like, hey, you're missing like a whole transcript. So then it was delayed by like 2 weeks while I waited for this transcript. So I think being super prepared before it even opens, and then applying as early as you possibly can, being prepared, because then if you already have everything, you can just dump everything in there, do your supplementals, and then start already being in the rolling admissions and reaching out to people.
How late is too late? Because my first cycle I applied in July, and I think I just why did I even apply in July?
Yeah, I think anytime past the beginning of June is probably. I mean, there's still the people that get in applying after that, but I think that if you apply as soon as it opens until like the end of May, like you got a good chance.
Yeah, because I do think like most applications are just subpar.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it to apply your first cycle. You would rather take a gap year and work on your experience if your like GPA is low.
Because it's expensive to apply.
It's not so much money.
It's not. Yeah. I think that was one of the things, and also save up money to apply, because that was one of the things that I don't think I really realized before I applied, was how much it was going to cost. By the time I took my GRE, I took the
Casper.
I took I think that was the only thing I took, but then I had to pay for all the applications, the CASPA fee, my
sending
transcripts,
those scores too.
Yeah, and sending the scores. And I think I really did not understand how much money it was going to be. And then I was like, at the end of it, I was like, texting my mom, I'm like, can you send me a couple $100 because I need to finish sending this. She's like, yeah. So I think that was like definitely saving up money for the application process is its own beast in itself.
Yeah. But I'm glad. Savannah is a great place, I feel like, for PA school.
Yeah.
So what made you choose Savannah? Because you lived in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I lived in Pennsylvania.
Undergrad, right?
Yep, my whole life. And then once we graduated, we lived in Houston for 2 years. And I made also another mistake thing. Make sure the states you're applying for are not states that only really want residents of that state.
Okay, yeah.
I made the mistake of applying to a lot of schools in Texas, and Texas is a big, like, if you don't live here, like, and if you're not a resident and your parents haven't lived here for 25 years, you're not getting it. And I don't think I realized that.
Yeah.
I think North Carolina is kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that, and I applied to so many Texas schools, and then I had to do this like whole Texas resident form for a lot of them. I was like, oh, this is super interesting. And then I wondered why I got rejected from all of them, and it's because I was only living there for a year at that point.
Yeah.
So I applied to a bunch of schools in Texas, and then I worked with a girl that she got into Savannah, and I was like, I've never even heard of Savannah, but I'll apply to South because I applied to all the Souths.
Yeah.
I applied to a lot of schools on the coast because we wanted to live on the coast, and then South was one of my last interviews, and I had already gotten into West Palm Beach, so I was like, oh, keep it pretty lax, like we'll see if I even like Savannah. I had never been there, and then I did the interview, fell in love in Savannah. I was like, I really hope I get in. So
yeah. So I mean, what made you choose Savannah or West Palm Beach? Just the place?
Yes, the location. I wanted to be able to drive home. Savannah is a super cool city. West Palm Beach is kind of a little bit more spread out, super high cost of living, and I like that Savannah South was a little bit bigger of a class size. It was about 12, 15 students bigger. I loved how close we were to the beach, and I was just like, and I loved, one of my top schools was Charleston, and I got waitlisted at there, and I was like, okay, this is like a mini Charleston, so let's go here.
Actually. I haven't been to Charleston, but looking at the photos and looking at people, listening to people's experiences, it feels like
it's a more historic, less busy, less traffic Charleston.
Yeah. So so I applied to all Pennsylvania schools my first cycle. I didn't get into any Pennsylvania schools. Like I had like 4 interviews, 15, I think it was 15 PA schools and 4 interviews. And I just wish, why did I apply to Pennsylvania schools? Because I don't think Pennsylvania really prefers
Pennsylvania residents.
I just don't know.
I didn't apply to a single Pennsylvania school, so but I think you have to kind of look into these schools and kind of look at their class sizes and who or like their people that are in their classes and see who they're accepting, what their kind of vibe is, and fill out that way, because going on the website and just reading their prereqs isn't a great understanding the students that they do accept. So
yes, well, that might be the conclusion of this podcast.
Sorry, I talked a lot.
I talked a lot too, I felt like, but to wrap this all up, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. So just name the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Favorite coffee shop in Savannah?
My favorite coffee shop is actually in a brewery. It's Float Coffee inside of Two Tides. They're open in the morning. I like it because there's not a lot of people there. It's pretty quiet. They got good coffee. You got like whole booths to yourself, and it's like in a house, so it's cozy. Okay,
I'm going there soon. Probably the break. Best place for a date night in Savannah?
Best place for a date night in Savannah is St. Bibiana. It's in the Hotel Bardo. It's an Italian restaurant. It's so good. It is a little bit pricey, so like definitely like an anniversary date night type of thing, but the food is so good.
Okay. I'm noting all these down. She has the best recommendations, by the way. Best place to go out for drinks?
A tie between Peacock Lounge and Alley Cats. They're both speakeasies, downtown Savannah. I say a tie because Peacock is sometimes weird about like dress code, and sometimes I'll wear flip-flops and then not be able to get in. And then they both have great drinks, super like cozy, cool Savannah vibes. Okay.
Great recommendations. Okay, 2 this or that questions.
Okay.
Didactic or clinical rotations?
Clinical.
Emergency medicine or internal medicine?
Emergency medicine for sure.
Okay, so that was the conclusion of this podcast. I hope everyone who listened gained something valuable from this conversation. Yeah, I had fun talking to you.
I had a great time talking to you, Harsh. This is fun.
Yeah, this is fun actually. I should do more of these in person.
You should.
Because I did a lot of virtual ones back when I was a pre-PA, and sometimes I would like have a brain freeze.
Feel awkward, and you're like staring at your computer.
And it was so bad sometimes. So I'm glad like this is actually fun talking to real people, talking to classmates, learning about them. But yeah. Anything last minute you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
Awesome. Well,
Go ahead.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you.